This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host for this week's episode, Paul Jasley. I'm filling in for our regular host, Mike Rapin. I believe he's in the wilds of Philadelphia this weekend. Hopefully he finds his way back to the studio soon. But I'm not alone, of course. I can't do the show by myself. I'm joined by two turkeys who were parted at the very last minute before Thanksgiving, Kait Lamphere.
Hello.
And Danny Martinez.
Gobble, gobble.
There it is. Welcome to the show. This is a great episode we have lined up. We're doing one of our Goodreads Theme of the Month episodes. This theme for this month on Goodreads is Ask an Expert, comics recommended by your local comic shop or your library. And I just want to give a quick shout out to the Goodreads group. I don't know if we talk about it enough. It's a great community over there. I know I'm not active in it as much as I should be, but there's over 1,400 friends over there talking about comics, doing monthly theme discussions just like this one. There's a yearly reading challenge that everybody picks a book to read through. I want to give a big thanks to our friend of the show, Aaron, keeps that group running smoothly. It's a great resource. So if you're not on the Goodreads, go check it out. I read comic books over on Goodreads, the app there, and you can join the discussion about books like this. So that being said, let's jump into the discussion, talk about books that were recommended to you by your local comic shop or your local library. We're going to start with you, Kait. What did you read this week? And how are you doing? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask, how are you doing?
Yeah, I've been reading a lot. So, that means that I'm doing well generally. If I'm reading something good, I'm pretty happy. I found this book, Loving Ohio, by Matthew Ehrman and Sam Beck at my local comic shop, Vault of Midnight in Grand Rapids. And this was on the staff picks shelf for Marshall's Picks. Very convenient staff recommendations shelf right there. They always have that up, so that's really nice. And this is from Dark Horse. I picked this up in October, and it was a pretty good read for like late spooky season. It's November now. But however, I started reading this on a night when Brian was not at home and my cat was asleep in some mysterious place that I couldn't find. And one of the first pages shows a very creepy man crawling in through a window and looking straight at the reader, like fourth wall break. And so I put that book down and I read something happy, and then I read the rest of it during the daytime.
Perfect.
The rest of the book isn't quite that directly creepy, so I probably would have been fine. But there are content warnings in this book for suicide, attempted murder, and a cult that thinks it's a religion. So heads up, this is not a chill read.
No, absolutely not.
The story focuses on a group of high school friends in the town of Loving, Ohio, thus the title, Loving Ohio. A bunch of teens have gone missing recently, and there's a character death close to the beginning of the book. Heads up. There's a church-like organization in town called the Chorus, and over the course of the book, you learn just how influential the Chorus is throughout this town, and then they also have locations in other places. And as the back of the book will tell you, it's a cult. The group of friends ultimately solve the mystery of the missing teens, but I feel like there's a lot of room here for a sequel. Like there are parts of the world building that have not been resolved. And so it's like, okay, they're all technically safe at the end of this story, but there's still a lot of potential for something else to happen. Mm-hmm. And then the art on this book is really unique. There's this muted color scheme with a lot of oranges. There's heavier lines and brighter colors that are used occasionally, really effectively when something really alarming happens. It's kind of like if there's a fire or something, and it's very striking on the page in comparison to the rest of the art. There's these, I don't know, I thought of them as chapter title pages or issue covers, but I think that they're a couple of pages into a next chapter, but they're used to introduce this new arc of the story, and they have titles on them, and they tend to be used as a full page panel as well, and they'll have they'll contain a story beat or they'll contain some dialogue or something like that, and those panels in particular were my favorite panels of the book. And I'm actually not really into the cover of this book. I wish they had just used one of these panels. And then I am a typesetter professionally, so I'm always really interested in the way that people use text and fonts in books, and these chapter titles or sometimes pieces of narrative text are set in a serif font that's not the same as the dialogue font, and they're fully justified blocks of text, so you get these big gaps in between the words. And it on one hand, I'm like, oh no, that makes me so uncomfortable as a typesetter. But like that contributes to the tone of this book. Like it makes you feel like something is wrong. Like it's eerie. Like there's space between the words where this window man might be hiding, like it's uncomfortable. But it contributed really well to the overall tone of the book. So
I could see that. So funny. I pulled up the book here. I'm looking at it, and yeah, the illustration is really lovely. I love the color palette, the sort of detailed illustration, and of course, I got to the page you mentioned with the guy crawling through the window. I was like, oh, yep, we'll read that one later. We'll save that for another time.
Same. I was looking at the preview, and I got to that page, and I was like, holy moly!
There it is. Yep. It's giving Bob really from Twin Peaks.
Yeah. So, yeah. I do really like the characters sometimes have like these colors behind them. Like, I don't know, like something's kind of following them.
Yeah.
Seems interesting. And like definitely a very interesting art choice, which will kind of resonate with something I'll talk about a little later. But yeah, this looks great. I don't know how I missed this because the art is insane. I love the art style.
Yeah, this looks really cool. Nice pick, Marshall. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah.
It does make me question. It does make me question what else Marshall has on that shelf.
Yeah.
But as long as it's not all like this and like a Dahmer book or like,
Great. Funny. Are you okay?
Yeah.
It was a good pick for October, like when I was in the store.
That makes sense. Yeah, I was in Vault to Midnight yesterday, actually, and I browsed the recommended shelf myself, so I didn't see this one. I'll have to go back and double check it. So it looks cool. Nice. Danny, how have you been? What have you been reading?
I have been doing very well, thank you, Paul. A lot of activity. Yesterday, well, I guess when we're recording this on Saturday, we have a quarterly show called the Dallas Comic Show. Mm-hmm. It's usually set in one of those malls that is halfway abandoned, but there's so much space there now that they kind of use it for events like this. They've actually part of the mall now has been converted to something called the NTX Arena, which NTX was a card show, like a really small trading card show that has now evolved into like this larger thing. Like last year or a few months ago, they brought in Jim Lee for a comic show, and I'm like, that couldn't have been cheap.
Wow.
So I guess it's lucrative to have these type of trading card shows and comic conventions events, because now they have like this little spot called the NTX Arena. So I haven't been in there, but this show is separate from that, but it's at the same location. But it's great. There were some really cool creators that you don't normally see at conventions. Like Tim Bradstreet was there, who did a long run on The Punisher. Angel Medina, who you may recognize from like a lot of his very iconic covers. But like these people are not, I guess they're not currently working as prolific in comics like somebody that the people that we talk about on the show more normally. Mm-hmm. But it's still kind of cool to see them. So yeah, I love these little shows, and it's a good way for me to go and spend more money than I need to. So it's been a good weekend. Now, as far as what I've been reading, I will say, as you guys know, or most of you guys know, if you listen to this show on a regular basis, the way I prep for the show is Mike sends an email on Friday. I open that email on Saturday and I check, am I on the show this week? And has anything that I've already read qualify? This week, the theme was so, because we were talking about recommendations from our library or a comic shop, I was like, I'm in trouble because there's no way I get to the library or the shop right now. So what I did instead is I went digital. So I went to the Hoopla app, which is run by my public library, and they also have recommendations. So I just picked the first thing that was on there. Luckily for me, it's something that I wanted to catch up on anyways. It is Absolute Martian Manhunter Volume 1 from DC Comics. This is a book that I had started reading, but then they had like a little break, and I kind of fell off. It kind of fell off the weekly or the monthly rotation for me. But I knew I was going to come back and check it out because this book has been amazing. So I'm glad I finally got to read the whole thing and talk about it for the show. This is written by Dennis Camp with art by Javier Rodriguez, letters by Hassan Otsmani Elhau. In this book, we see FBI agent John Jones, a by-the-book investigator who finds his mind invaded by an alien consciousness calling itself the Martian. And what starts as a psychedelic telepathic flashes becomes a citywide psychological war as ideas and fears manifest into real threats. The book plays like a noir cosmic horror meditation on identity, on memory, and also how ideas are spread. You know, Dennis Camp trying to keep things light and breezy for the comic reader.
Yep.
I love the reinvention of the character. I think as far as things go, this is one of the most extreme reinventions in the Absolute Universe.
Yeah.
You know, because for the most part, all the characters are pretty similar to their counterparts with a few changes. But Martian Manhunter, they really, like, outside of the name John Jones, like, they really went in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
But I find that very cool. I find that refreshing. I also don't have a lot of history with comics for Martian Manhunter. Like, if you ask me, I don't have a run that I'm like, this is the Martian Manhunter you got to run. It's mostly the animated show, the Justice League animated show that really, which is funny because at the convention yesterday, Phil Morris, actor, you may recognize him. He was Jackie Childs on Seinfeld, but he was also Martian Manhunter in Smallville.
Oh, okay.
So it's all inadvertently all connected. I also really like Rodriguez's art. It's very bold. It's saturated in color. It's kind of a mix of noir and psychedelic, and also uses a lot of those things where the character will be on the panel and there'll be like it's like technically smoke, I guess, but it's in many different colors. So when I looked at the pages from Loving Ohio, some of the preview pages where the characters also have some kind of similar effect behind them, I thought that was pretty neat. There's also, if you buy this physically, you get rewarded because there's a few pages where you got to put them up against the light and something kind of comes through. So that's always fun. Unfortunately, I read this on the DC app, so I need to go track down my issue wherever I might have it in my. It's somewhere in this area.
Somewhere.
I know the general vicinity of where my issue number 6 is. Or I might just go pick up the hardcover collection to check that out, because there's a few of those throughout the thing where you can put it up to the light. They call it Martian Vision. And what's really cool about this book is that due to its success, the creative team not only remained intact for the project, but also was extended beyond the 6-issue plan. This was only supposed to be this one volume, but the first issue sold like 120,000 copies or something. I don't know. That run,
crazy.
Don't check those numbers. That feels like a lot, but just know that people were very excited about this book. You know, and it's different from the traditional Martian Manhunter. He's not we don't really know, but he's definitely not an alien from Mars, like in the traditional Martian Manhunter sense. I think that the fact that they keep some of the things, you know, there's a few Easter eggs. Chocos are mentioned if you're a longtime Martian Manhunter reader. So it's a great book. It's fantastic. I can see why it got extended. I do wonder if they changed the last issue to become an ongoing series, because it leaves you at a point where it closes out the story, but it also gives you like this cliffhangery hook. So I wonder what the original script called for that. So maybe one of these days we'll have Dennis Camp back on the show, and we can ask him about that. So, but yeah, that's a great recommendation, Hoopla. Well done.
It's such a good book. And I mean, again, Dennis Camp is, I think, one of the best writers going right now. I think anytime he's writing something, I'm inclined to check it out. And Javier Rodriguez, oh, what an amazing artist. I love the work he did with Al Ewing on those Defenders books over at Marvel. Those are amazing comics. And again, the use of the medium in this book, the breaking down of the pages and everything, like, it's just a book that even if I don't know what is going on, it's just so fun to read because it's just so cool looking and just inventive. So fantastic comic. Yeah.
Yeah. And the concepts are like, when you start digging into what's going on, because there, like I said, Dennis Camp doesn't shy away from like sensitive areas, and I don't want to go too much into that because that's kind of the fun of the book, to discover that, and how every page or every issue kind of things get even worse and worse. So yeah, it's great though. It's a fun read in a weird way, but it is very entertaining.
Yeah, it really is a comic that pushes what you can do with the comic, and I always love that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
for sure.
Nice.
But Paul, what about you? How have you been? How are comics?
Oh, comics are always great. I'm always way behind on them, but this is a good excuse to read something different. Before I get to that, I do want to mention I posted about it in the Discord for the show. So again, if you're not part of the IRCB Discord, jump over there. Great group of people over there talking about comics and literally anything else under the sun. But I had posted some pictures from my trip to Los Angeles a couple weeks ago. I was there 2 Sundays ago, went to the Skirball Cultural Center, which is a Jewish museum and cultural center in Los Angeles, for an exhibit called Jack Kirby Humans and Humanity, or Heroes and Humanity. An amazing exhibit of original Jack Kirby artwork. I could have spent an entire day there. I spent a couple hours just walking around. They had, right when you walk in, first issue of Captain America, #1, right there on the wall. Then they've got Jack Kirby's army, uniform from when he was serving in World War II. Then you just kind of like a history of Jack Kirby, which literally is a history of comics. You're going through the romance comics him and Joe Simon did, the war comics, all of the Marvel stuff, amazing collections that people just donated to the museum to put on display. A lot of original, fully inked original comic pages. They had every single page from X-Men #7 from 1964 on the wall. You could go along and read the whole comic if you wanted. And then a big thrill for me was when you turned the corner from all the Marvel stuff, they had to work for DC, and that was less original inked pages, but more pencil illustrations and collages. So you had a pencil illustration of Darkseid right when you turned the corner there. The amazing collage he did for Fantastic Four #51, where Reed goes into the negative zone for the first time. Truly amazing artwork, and just to see that stuff up close, was really thrilling. I mean, Jack Kirby's obviously, for me personally, a huge influence and someone whose work I find very powerful and moving. So to see his work put in a museum under this context of he was using his art to fight against racism, to push inclusivity, to make a statement about humanity through the superhero genre, was really amazing. And they ended the sort of exhibit with non-comic art that he did. So just like personal sketches, an amazing sketch he did of Gabriel fighting an angel. And of course, if you look up this picture, it's an illustration of a man, Gabriel from the biblical story, fighting an angel, but the angel is like robotic, like he's Kirby tech, and it's so cool looking. And they had these beautiful collages that he did. They're just like 3 feet long, just stuffed with images. And I could have spent an entire day just looking at those. So if you happen to live in LA, or if you're ever in LA, that exhibit is running through February. So make it over there. If you're a comic fan, you owe it to yourself to go check it out. It's absolutely amazing. So anyway,
that sounds so cool. I did look through your pictures, Paul, because I know you were sharing those in multiple places, and I was like very jealous, but also very excited that at least we get some secondhand exposure to all that really, really cool stuff. So,
and trust me, I posted a small fraction of the pictures I took. I took pictures of almost everything there because I'm just so overwhelmed. It was so great. So, great exhibit. So got me inspired to read some comics. I read some great comics on my trip, which I'll talk about later. But for this week's topic, the Goodreads Book of the Month theme, I do want to shout out a couple of the Goodread members over there who contributed some reviews to the Goodreads thread. Jessica read Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. She really liked it. It's a great book, beautiful looking book. Brandon read The Man in the Macintosh Suit, said it was okay, but it's a good review over there. So if you jump over to Goodreads, you can see their full reviews over there. And for my pick, I kind of pulled a Danny. I was like, I don't really have time to get to the comic shop before Saturday, to read something. My library is very close to my house, but I didn't have a chance to get down there physically. But the Grand Rapids Public Library, which has an amazing comic book selection at the main branch near my house, also has an app, and they have a staff picks section on the app. So that's very convenient. You hit the app, staff picks. Unfortunately, the adult recommendations did not include any comics, but the young adult and young readers staff picks were loaded with comics. So many cool graphic novels there. So I was scrolling through that, and they have it broken down by theme or genre, and they had a topic called Girls' Lives in Color. It was all about female young women centered stories. And I picked one that looked intriguing to me. It was called Little White Duck, A Childhood in China. It was written by Na Liu with art by Andres Vera Martinez, who is Na Liu's husband and an illustrator. It's published by Graphic Universe. And this basically is a book of little reflections and stories about Na Liu's real life growing up in China in the 70s. So the first story in the book is basically her as a child remembering the day that Chairman Mao Zedong passed away, and why doesn't remember why everyone is so sad, but her parents are sad and crying. They try to explain it to her. And the book kind of functions as an example of how China shifted in that period, from communist China to Mao Zedong's passing, and the world and the China that her parents knew slowly fading away. And instead of being one overarching autobiographical story, it's broken up into short little memories or, things she talks about. Like I said, Mao passing away. There's a segment where they talk about going to school, and the school lesson is about the 4 pests. So her assignment is to go capture 4 rats and bring their tails to school, because there's a big rat problem in China at the time. So they're telling kids, go fight these rats, get rid of them. So it's kind of amazing. Imagine that being your school assignment. Bring 4 rat tails back next week. Talks about the Li Fang Day, which is a communist China figure and inspiration for that. The story behind Chinese New Year, which I didn't know, the sort of mythology behind that and all the traditions. And the story wraps up with her visiting her father's village, Longquan. I should mention that her stories are all centered about her childhood growing up in Wuhan, China. So you get some nice illustrations of China and maps where Wuhan is and how it functions, where it's located in larger China. And this is so outside of my wheelhouse. I really enjoyed reading it, though. Something that I would not have found on my own. It's clearly aimed at younger readers because there's a lot of sort of simplistic explanations of things. But I didn't know anything about China in this period, so it was educational. And the illustration style is really lovely. It's realistic, but also sort of exaggerated and cartoony at times. It's simplistic, but it's detailed at the same time. And there's amazing double-page spreads where Martinez will illustrate, a dream that Na Liu has, where her and her sister are flying on a giant crane across the countryside. And it's a beautiful illustration of that. There's beautiful illustrations of the myth of the dragon for Chinese New Year, all including maps and Chinese figures, sayings, and recreations of communist Chinese propaganda posters and stuff. It's a really lovely, rich illustrative style, with a nice sort of, again, muted color tone to underscore the sort of the reality of their life. They're certainly not a rich family. When the last story, when she goes to her father's village, it's very, very poor. And the way she illustrates that, or the way he illustrates that, is really lovely to get to see that difference in cultures there. And just overall, it was an interesting way to experience Chinese history that didn't feel like it was explaining things to you. It's authentic and it's lived in experience, and it gives you a glimpse of China at that time. And sort of the concluding idea of the book is that, Na Liu now lives in America. She moved here in the late 90s, but she reflects back on her childhood and thinks, boy, China today is so different than when I was a child. But the China that my parents knew is almost completely gone. So telling these stories and these memories kind of keeps that history and culture alive. So Little White Duck, it's a really interesting book. And again, something that for young readers, I would not have found on my own, but I'm really glad that the library app pushed it my way. It was a great read.
This kind of reminds me of Feeding Ghosts by Tessa Halls, which I just read. It's also about, the middle of the 1900s China and how it's changed compared to modern day. So this sounds like it would be a good complementary read to that. Yeah.
I mean, again, I love autobiographical comics, and it's nice that this one is not so much here's my entire life. It's just always some memories that I had, and it kind of feels more genuine that way. And from the back matter in the book, they kind of explain that, the artist, Martinez, he's the writer's husband. So it was his idea to be like, hey, why don't you tell some stories about your childhood growing up? She's not a real writer by trade, but she has this experience, and he offered to illustrate it because he's a comic book artist. And it's a perfect like marriage, no pun intended, perfect marriage of their sort of styles to make this book work. So yeah, it was great.
Yeah, that's really neat.
Well, cool. That's what we read. Yeah, that's what we read. And again, shout out to the Goodreads group for picking this topic. It's a great way to, again, get inside your wheelhouse. Go to your local comic shop, chat up the owner, chat up the people working there, see if they can recommend something for you. Go to your local library. We always recommend library visits here on the Irie Comic Books podcast. It should be called We Love Libraries as well, the subtitle.
Except Nick.
Except Nick, that's right.
I do want to encourage everyone to get a library card, even if you don't think you're going to use it very often.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's always good, right? It goes towards their budgets and all that. Like the more people that they know they're going to serve, so it's always very helpful. So even Nick has a library card, even if he's in constant battle with the library system.
Actually going, yeah. And again, like Danny and I've read books digitally from our library, which is a great resource. And I've got if your library has Canopy, that's like basically better than Netflix. It's free movies you can stream from your library. All you need is a library card. It's amazing. So yeah, utilize those resources. Utilize your local comic shop, of course. So yeah, thanks again to Goodreads Group for making this the topic. But let's jump ahead. Let's talk about some books that we're excited to read. What is on the top of our pile this upcoming week? Books we are excited about, books we've been sitting on for way too long and finally going to knock out. I want to jump over to you, Danny. What is on the top of your pile this week?
It was hard to pick what to talk about for this one, because I have read a couple things already for the next week as I prepare to do a bunch of reviews, but also since Mike isn't here and we're playing with the rules very fast and loose, I want to give a quick shout out to look Nick set this example, so I'm just following the rules here. Quick shout out to Galactic #1. This is a new book from Distillery by Kurt Pyers with art by Almika Pina Lee. Almika Pina is the artist. Lee Loridge is the colorist, and Micah Myers on letters. If you like Star Wars but you wanted it to be a little bit more violent, graphic, and full of romance, this is the book for you. So
that's a
big shout out to Distillery and the creative team. They did really good job. I got to read the first issue and I was very much hooked on it. So, but for the top of my pile, it's Universal Monsters: The Invisible Man #4 from Image Skybound. This is written by James Tynion IV with art by Danny, colors by Brad Simpson. I love this series. This is the last issue of the series. So, everything's been leading up to this. The world will finally see if Jack Griffin's true face as the Invisible Man is unleashed. The first 3 issues of this has been such a really cool, methodical, slow burn. Just kind of the study of the psyche of a person that looks to become invisible and how that, what drives them to that. It's a really cool thing. Danny's art is beautiful. It's got these heavy inks, these loose lines. It reminds me a little bit of Tim Seeley, and I hate comparing artists, but like that's just kind of the feeling I get. And I love Tim Seeley's art. Like Danny makes this feel very dark and gritty. There's a sense of dread all around, and I really hope. And I don't know. I don't know much about the original Universal Monsters Invisible Man film or wherever it may come from. I've only seen some of the more recent stuff and more recent iterations, but my hope is that we never actually get to see Jack Griffin be invisible himself. Like, I feel like that would be an interesting payoff. But then, like I said, I don't know how that would align with the source material or some of the other stuff, but I think that'd be cool. These Universal Monsters books all of them have been outstanding. They've already announced that next up is Phantom of the Opera, and I'm like, sign me up. I don't even care. I'm reading that too. So yeah, it's all great. So even though spooky season's over, it's never a bad time to read one of these Universal Monsters books from Image.
What other series have they done?
They did Dracula They did The Creature of the Black Lagoon, which is an actual sequel to the film.
Nice.
They did a Frankenstein book, which I want to read because of all the Frankenstein stuff that's just kind of in the ether. And they did Invisible Men, I think, is the fourth one. So, yeah, I'm wondering why they haven't done a Wolfman book. I feel like that one would be something that people would like, but I don't know. Maybe they haven't found the right team for this. It feels like all these they were like, we want to do a book about Dracula, and then like James Tynion just volunteer. Like whoever's working on these, they're just kind of volunteering because that's their favorite. That's kind of what it feels like. So
yeah, that's really cool.
Well, I mean, didn't I've been very curious about these books. So thanks for reminding me, Danny. I'll have to check this stuff out.
Oh, and The Mummy as well. Faith Aaron Hicks did The Mummy.
Well, I mean, didn't Kirkman had that Astounding Wolfman series already at Image like a decade ago, so maybe they don't want to confuse people by having another Wolfman.
It's funny you mentioned that. I was talking to one of my co-hosts, and he also brought that up, and I had to look it up.
Yeah,
and I was like, "What is this nonsense, Kirkman? What are you doing here?" But we need to bring it back to the Universal Monsters feel, where I want to see that there's a guy inside that suit in the art of that Wolfman.
Yeah. No, it sounds cool. And again, Tynion is so good at making a creepy vibe. So I will have to read this book once it's collected. And look, spooky season is a state of mind. You can read scary stories anytime you want. So, yeah. What about you, Kait? What's on your pile?
So I've got Lazarus Collection 3 waiting for me. This is written by Greg Rucka with art by Michael Lark. I have a feeling that the collection 3 might also include some like bonus issues or something, because there is a longer list of writers and authors, which are Eric Troutman, Neil Bailey, Aaron Duran, and artists Steve Lieber, Bilquis Evely, and Tristan Jones. So I think that there's probably more to this collection than just the regular straightforward arc of the Paint story. I read volume 1 as a Hoopla bonus borrow a few months ago, and I just kept going with the series. Like it was really intriguing to me. Kind of ends on regular kind of cliffhangers or like intriguing story beats, so I always want to see what happens next. And now I'm on like the collection 3, I think collects volumes 5 and 6, and it's just like a heavier omnibus. So I'm really kind of booking it with this one.
Nice.
The larger world of Lazarus is one where regions of the world are controlled by families, and each family is like exceptional from the others in some like kind of iffy way, like eugenics or brainwashing or like not great things. And most families have a Lazarus, who is a person who can act like an ambassador or an assassin or a military general or private security. They're like the go-to person if things really hit the fan. And there is one Lazarus in particular that the series is focused on. Her name is Forever Carlisle. And at this point in the series, she's questioning all of these stories that she's been told by this particular family, and her loyalty is based on those stories. And everybody in the family kind of seems to know this. And so her questioning these things is like bad for them. She's a very physically powerful person. And this is a very character driven series for me. Some of the other Lazari have become like reoccurring characters, and they're all interesting in their own ways. And there are a few like worker level people who have storylines that I've become invested in. And the world building around these families as like political entities is all based on like these like really shaky alliances. And I feel like none of them stand out as like the good guy. Like there's no, you're not rooting for anybody other than the protagonist and some of these characters, like individual characters. And I think part of my interest in this series is like my question of like, what does a satisfying ending look like in regards to this like very iffy world organization, political system? And I've been transferring my Goodreads reading history over to Storygraph, and Storygraph like charts your most read authors. And I didn't realize how much I've read by Greg Rucka until I had a chart in front of me going, "Hey, this is your sixth most read author." Like, oh, okay.
Nice.
So yeah, he really knows how to build like worlds and characters that I care about.
Nice. Yeah, I really like Greg Rucka when he hits. I mean, he did so much work on Batman, which I really, really adored. Gotham Central is one of my favorite Bat-related titles. I remember trying to read Lazarus, and for whatever reason, I couldn't just wrap my head around it. It's almost like too fast. But again, Rucka's so good at world building. I know Nick's praised this series. You're praising it. I might have to just jump back in and give it another shot.
Yeah, and I think I remember, and Nick put on their chat, but I remember this as well. One of those books is like the Lazarus X, where they were taking a break, so that's why you might see maybe I think they're like different one shots from other perspectives, as opposed to like Greg Rucka's overarching story, and that's why you get. But I mean, Steve Lever, Bill Gazevely, and Tristan Jones are like three very cool artists. I don't recognize the writers' names, but the artists, I'm like, I kind of want to check those out just because, especially Bilquis Evely in this world. I mean, we just kind of mentioned Bilquis earlier, talking about the Supergirl book. So, yeah, this Lazarus may be coming back to life, even though they took a really, really good break, and that's probably why one of the reasons I also fell off, because Rucka was taking his time with that book.
I feel like
Lazarus coming back to life is not a pun. Sorry.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of exposition in the first volume. Maybe that's why you didn't get into it, Paul. But Hoopla has these like omnibuses. They call them collections on Hoopla. Yeah. And so you get like way more for one Hoopla credit if you go straight to reading the collections.
Nice. Cool. Add it to the list. Another book. Yeah. Top of my pile. So... Well, I'll talk more about Hoopla when I get to my pick, but I want to shout out some of our Discord friends, what they're reading this week. CK is reading Absolute Wonder Woman. That's a great pick. Fantastic book over there. Jeff is reading Die number 13, and our very own Nick White is going to be reading Free Planet Volume 1. Speaking of Hoopla, speaking of Nick White, Nick, use proof listing today. Hope you're happy. I'm reading Ice Cream Man. So top of my pile is Ice Cream Man, Volume 3, Hopscotch, Melange. Danny's got the Ice Cream Man playing cards, or just like playing cards, right?
Cards.
Nice.
Yeah, the little deck of cards.
So yeah, as I mentioned, I had a trip to Los Angeles. So it's a couple long flights to get there and back. So I wanted something to read. I grabbed my tablet. It's like, what can I download from Hoopla to read on the plane? I grabbed the first 2 volumes of Ice Cream Man, tore through those during my flight to LA. And
I don't know if that's the best reading material on a plane, but okay.
I didn't know what to expect. I had a vague idea of what this series is. Again, this is Ice Cream Man, written by W. Maxwell Prince, art by friend of the show, Martin Morazzo, and Chris O'Halloran. Yeah, I know Mike and Nick have praised this book. They have a little Patreon series all about it you can listen to. I knew vaguely what it was about, but even their explanations left out a lot of like what to expect. I'm not sure I can do the book justice. It is the first 2 volumes, at least, were a series of sort of independent stories, most of which were very tragic, some of which were very disturbing, all connected by this very creepy titular character, the Ice Cream Man, who kind of shows up at these tragic moments in people's lives. Again, yeah, it's not a fun read, but it is a beautifully made comic, and I think that's what works for it. There's some really cool playing with the format and technique of comic book storytelling. The artwork by Morazzo and O'Halloran it's like Uncanny Valley. Like, it's detailed, but it's like something's always slightly off about the characters and their faces. It makes the whole book feel unsettling, which fits the stories perfectly. And I really like the way that Prince and Morazzo and O'Halloran are playing with the format of the comic book page. There's a whole issue. I think it's issue 8 in volume 2. I don't remember the exact number, but it's the Neapolitan issue where you see a man 3 different versions of his life if he'd taken different decisions, and they're all illustrated side by side, and it's all silent, quote unquote silent for a comic. There's no dialogue. And just looking at the page, you see these 3 different stories playing out side by side. It's beautifully, beautifully done. And I think that's what makes the book work. Again, as you said, Danny, not the best maybe material to like plow through and binge read while on an airplane, but I did it. And I think I'm in for the long haul. Seems like this new volume 3, might explore more of the lore surrounding the Ice Cream Man and his relationship to this mysterious dark cowboy Caleb, who's popped up a couple times. I'm kind of more interested about that. I like the individual stories, but if I get some deeper, more connected lore, I'll be more invested. So Ice Cream Man, I'm not going to say it's a fun read, but I'm enjoying it. And I really enjoyed the way the stories are told, as tragic as they are, and I'm in. There you go, Nick, Mike, you did it. I'm reading Ice Cream Man.
Yeah. There at the beginning of the book, you really get this like Twilight Zone type of vibes where you're like, see all these bad things happen, and then the Ice Cream Man kind of shows up. But as the stories have been, as the book's been going on, there's a lot more. There's like lore behind the Ice Cream Man and other forces in that same universe. And then they did really cool stuff, right? There's the Neapolitan issue with the 3 different stories. There's the palindrome issue where you can read it backwards and forwards. They recently, like Paul mentioned, I have my deck of cards here. I haven't read it yet because I hear it's pretty sad. So I'm waiting for that. And then Nick in our chat, there's that issue with the big plane on fire careening across the sky. Yeah. So, maybe, like I said, not the best reading for public travel, but definitely really well made comics.
Yeah, beautifully made comics, and I'm glad I finally took the dive and tried a taste of the Ice Cream Man. So there we go. Those are great books. I'm so excited to dive into these. Sounds like we all had great picks. So with that being said, I want to thank once again Mike for letting me host the show. Thank you to our Goodreads friends for the Book of the Month theme. We had some great recommendations. If you have any more recommendations, hop over to Goodreads, put in your reviews there, log your reads. I want to thank Kait and Danny for joining me today. Thank you, Nick, for proof listening. Thank you, Zander, for editing this, making it listenable. And I want to thank you for listening, of course. Until next time, comics are good, and so are you.